Let's talk about a revolution. We're diving into the world's biggest gaming market, a place where for years, one digital empire seemed totally untouchable. But then, a few rebels and a couple of really powerful words started to shake its very foundations.
And it all kicked off with this phrase, spiritual opium. Back in August 2021, a Chinese state-affiliated media outlet used these words to describe video games. And that single phrase, it sent absolute shockwaves, not just through China, but across the entire global gaming industry.
So you have to wonder, right? How could just one phrase cause so much chaos? Well, to really get the answer, we first need to understand the empire it was aimed at.
See, before all the chaos, there was order. And that order was ruled by one company, Tencent. For years, they weren't just a player in the gaming world, they basically were the game.
Tencent built its massive kingdom on a really simple, brutally effective strategy. Find promising game studios, both in China and around the world, and then either invest in them or just buy them outright. You bring them into the empire, and you use Tencent's huge distribution power to make their games massive hits. This simple model made them the undisputed #1.
And you can see how they built this empire brick by brick. It started pretty humbly, back in 2009 with QQ Farm, a simple farm simulator that got an entire generation hooked. By 2014, they were investing heavily, and in 2015, their studio Timi released Honor of Kings. That thing was a monster hit that totally cemented their dominance and bankrolled their global expansion.
And check this out. This breakdown from 2020 shows you exactly why that spiritual opium label was so dangerous. Gaming wasn't just part of Tencent's business. It was the absolute financial heart of the entire empire, making up more than half of all their revenue.
Yeah, an attack on that heart is, well, an existential threat. And in August 2021, that one article revealed a huge vulnerability in Tencent's armor, its relationship with the government.
The article, it did not pull any punches. It called games electronic drugs, and it specifically singled out Tencent's biggest cash cow, Honor of Kings. Now, because this came from state-affiliated media, a lot of people read it as a direct message from the Chinese government itself, a clear warning shot across the bow of the industry.
The market? It didn't wait around to see what would happen next. Investors completely panicked. Tencent stock plunged by a staggering 20%, almost instantly. It was a massive sign of just how fragile this digital empire could be when faced with that kind of pressure.
Tencent's response was, as you'd expect, immediate. That very same day, they announced a whole suite of new, stricter rules for young players. But then, something kind of interesting happened. The original article was taken down, scrubbed clean of the phrases spiritual opium and electronic drugs, and then it was republished. The signal was pretty clear. The government had gotten what it wanted.
Okay, so while Tencent was busy dealing with this threat from the government, a totally different kind of rebellion was brewing from inside the industry. A new generation of developers was rising up, and they had a very different vision for the future.
And this is the David to Tencent's Goliath, a studio called miHoYo. As their game, Genshin Impact, was blowing up, Tencent came knocking with a big investment offer, just like they always do. But miHoYo did something that was almost unheard of. They said no. They chose independence, betting they could actually succeed without the empire's help.
And what we're seeing here is a fundamental clash of philosophies. The Tencent model was all about minimizing risk. Buy talent, use formulas that you know work, and control all the distribution channels. miHoYo's way was the exact opposite. Embrace risk by prioritizing creative freedom, build a really passionate community, and aim for a global audience right from the start.
And their approach really struck a nerve with a super important demographic. While Tencent's games appeal to pretty much everyone, Genshin Impact totally captured the youth market. Its player base is just dominated by Gen Z, a generation that was starting to see the Empire's games as, a little old-fashioned.
miHoYo's success proved there was another way to do things. They weren't just a single rebel studio, they were proof of concept. And pretty soon, other forces began to rally, creating a whole new battlefield for the soul of Chinese gaming.
So what's really driving this rebellion? Why would a studio turn down all the money and the marketing power of the world's biggest gaming company? It really just boils down to three core frustrations.
First up is creative freedom. Developers just want to build new worlds, not rehash the same old Chinese classics because it's a safe bet to get past the censors. Second, the money. Traditional app stores in China can take a huge 30 to 50% cut of revenue, which makes it incredibly hard for studios to survive, let alone fund their next big idea. And third,
They have global ambition. China's Android app stores are all fragmented and focused on the domestic market, but these new studios want to reach a worldwide audience right from day one.
And all this frustration, it created an opening. New platforms like TapTap, which is a game-focused app store, and Bilibili, a video site for the anime and gaming community, they offered a totally different path. And seeing this opportunity, other tech giants are now making their move. ByteDance, the company behind TikTok, has built a game division over 1,000 people strong. And the e-commerce titan Alibaba is now acquiring the very studios that told Tencent no.
So when you put all these pieces together, you've got the regulatory pressure, you have this creative rebellion, and you have these new giants entering the scene. It all signals a historic turning point.
That old map, the one with Tencent right at the center of the universe, it's basically being torn up. The era of a single, all-powerful empire is giving way to a new, much more chaotic and competitive landscape. You could almost call it the warring states period of Chinese gaming.
And here's a quick look at the main factions on this new battlefield. You've got Tencent, the empire, fighting to defend its territory. You've got the creative rebels like miHoYo, who are proving that global success is possible on their own terms. And you have the new powers, like ByteDance and Alibaba, who are leveraging their massive resources to carve out their own kingdoms. Now make no mistake, Tencent is far from defeated. It's a powerful, adaptable company with incredible resources. But it's just not the only game in town anymore. The future isn't a monarchy, it's a battle royale. And that leaves us with the really big question. In this new era, who is ultimately going to win China's great gaming war?